Hey guys, so welcome and welcome back to the channel. As I promised you guys in a previous vlog where I was introducing y'all to my friends, I told you guys it was my desire to share some things with you all that I learned in my 20s. So if you want to hear more, just stay tuned. Okay, so first thing first, I definitely want to shout out my girl Erica Simone. Please follow her on YouTube, subscribe to her. She has amazing content. But she did this right before her 30th birthday, and I really thought that it was a pretty neat video to do. So definitely want to give props where they are due. Okay. So let's just get into it. The first thing that I learned in my 20s, I would have to say that I really learned in year 29, and that was to live for myself. I spent a lot of my years living and doing things for people because I wanted them to be pleased with the decisions that I made. And so therefore I abandoned who I really was, who I felt I was, what gave me the most peace and things like that, just to try to make other people happy. But the reality of it is I'm over here doing stuff that one, they never even told me they wanted me to do. Two, in my mind, I just made up that that would be what makes them happy. And three, they still living their lives while I'm making decisions that make them happy, but they not changing their decision making for me. So that's just silly, right? So I just been trying to really give myself grace and peace with living for me. Okay. So number two, honey, don't let the societal time for things to be achieved rob you of living in your present truth. What do I mean by that? I feel like right now, a lot of people are becoming entrepreneurs. They're getting instant success. People are buying homes and all the rest of that stuff. And sometimes it's very easy to get caught up in what everybody else is doing. And then you start to feel like you're not performing like you should. And I struggled with that in my 20s. In my 20s, y'all know I went through a divorce. I went back into the workforce after being out of the workforce for 8 years. And even though I had secured my own home, I started to lessen my accomplishments because I didn't own my home. I didn't feel like I could really show my home or be proud of my home because it was like, oh, everybody's buying houses and girl, you out here renting. You wasn't even in a position to buy a house. That's crazy. And I had to get myself together, and realize, no, I've made great strides. Divorce is hard. And I'm not doing it on my own. You know, my children's father does what he needs to do. He does what he's, supposed to do. But it was a restart for me. I'm learning to go back into paying my own bills, paying my own rent, paying my own car note, all the stuff like that. Because when I was a stay-at-home mom, those were not my realities. So I kind of limited my successes or watered down my successes because it didn't seem like it went along with what the world was doing. And so I would definitely tell you, live in your present, be proud of where you are right now, and do not become consumed with where you think society is saying you have to be. Number three, therapy, 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 honey. Heal your trauma. And I'm going to do a completely different video on this, but one of the best decisions that I made was to find a therapist. I went on therapy for Black girls. Sorry. Went on therapy for Black girls and found a therapist in my area because even though right now everybody's kind of doing telehealth, I still want to find a therapist that when the world opens back up, I can go to my therapist and not have to have therapy in my room while I have my kids sitting on the couch or knocking on the door like my son did the other day to tell me he had a booger in his nose. But I can't wait to be able to go into my therapist's office and just really disconnect, really unwind, not have to worry about listening to 30 different things at one time. But going to therapy was one of the best decisions that I've made. Y'all know I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I am a master's of counseling student right now. I believe in life coaches. I believe in all of that help plus prayer. I think you should do prayer plus help, practical help, because some people really need that practical help. Sometimes it's just not enough to pray. And like I said before, it doesn't doubt God, it doesn't limit God, but it definitely aids. God didn't put these people here for nothing. So it's just a support. It's a supplemental support. But I go to therapy once a week, and I just love it because it's time for me to just be me and unleash whatever I need to unleash for me. And so just having somebody who's concerned about me and not all the other moving parts of my life, but she wants to know how I'm doing, how she can support me. I can tell my honest and vulnerable truth. And that has been everything to me. And it has shown by leaps and bounds in my everyday life. Ooh, yeah. So I think number four. Number four for me, as far as something that I learned in my 20s, I would have to say is self-care. But I've learned that self-care is not just going to get my nails done or get my eyebrows done or get my eyelashes done. Self-care is not all materialistic. Some self-care is me saying, I'm going home and I'm putting my phone on Do Not Disturb at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Period. Especially because right now I do work 2 jobs. I work full-time as a school teacher, and then I work the part-time job tutoring 3 days out of the week. So sometimes I don't get home. I don't get to really get to embrace my children until late. And so I've really made it a point to rest. I used to spend my Saturdays cleaning, cooking, preparing for the next week, and I wasn't really giving myself a lot of downtime. And part of my self-care now is that rest is a requirement. It's not an option, it's a requirement. So I may not be able to return everybody's phone calls. I may not be able to produce YouTube content as much as I would like. However, I am prioritizing me, and that is a form of self-care for me. And so I do get my nails done. I do get my eyebrows done. I do get my hair done as a form of self-care. But the best self-care that I've done has been to rest in this season of my life. I need to sleep. I work full-time. I'm a full-time parent. As a part of a co-parenting journey, we travel a lot. Meeting their dad as far as getting the kids back and forth. So that's tiring. And then outside of that, it's just like I'm in school. I'm finishing my master's right now. Like, it's just a lot of things. I'm in a teaching certificate program at the same time, plus whatever I have to do just for my job, and then whatever my kids need from me. So it's just a very transitional time in my life, and I cannot show up the way that I really need to show up if I'm not sleeping. So for me, self-care looks like resting. Number 5 would have to be, honestly, like being financially responsible. So I'm learning what financial responsibility looks like, what all that encompasses. Like, I went 4 months without getting my nails done because at the time I was preparing for Christmas. I was trying to knock out some additional debt, and I just had to make a decision where I was like, okay, we're going to have to cut out the extras so that down the line we can do what we need to do. So like when I moved into my home, I had leased, rent to own, a washer and dryer. And y'all know we keep it real on here, so I ain't even about to hold you. We're going to tell the truth around here. But I had got a washer and dryer through a appliance company that was rent to own. And the payment every month was like $100. But I got tired of not being able to really hold on to a lot of my paycheck because I was paying, for things like that. So I made a decision to go and pay off my washing machine and dryer when I got my taxes. And granted, it was $1,000 that I really wish I could have been using to, blow a bag or something. But it meant that I'd be able to hold on to more of my paycheck when I was getting paid. So I went ahead and paid that off. I'm learning credit card utilization and how much credit you should use and how to pay off your credit card so that you're not just paying the payment and getting slapped with interest 3 days later. I'm just learning how to be financially responsible. And I feel like financial literacy is something that all Black people did not learn. Like, let's just be real. All Black people did not learn financial literacy growing up. A lot of us lived in households where, we robbed Peter to pay Paul, or we lived paycheck to paycheck. And granted, we made it and we thank God for it. But I think that a lot of the things we're being exposed to now is so that we can live better and live more responsibly. And so that has definitely been a journey for me, which is just learning how to establish myself financially, as a single woman. As far as when I say single, I just mean like as a non-married person, where one income pays all of my bills. So that has been that, like really just giving myself time to learn how that goes. Number 6 has been to try new things. I never was a plant girl, and y'all know now I'm like a crazy plant mom. But I never was a plant girl, and I have been gardening and like planting and buying plants, and now I'm like looking for little spaces where I could put plants everywhere. And I really have enjoyed that. So I tried that. I traveled last summer. We're coming up on a new summer, so I'm looking forward to what I'll do this summer. But last summer, I went to Cali and I went to Fort Lauderdale. I went to new places that I had never been to before and tried new things and tried new restaurants and just hung out with my friends and was present as Kamara. And that was really big. So that leads me into number 7, which is being an unapologetic boss Black woman. Being a Black woman is hard. We know that. We done seen our mamas do it, our grandmas do it, our aunties do it, our wives, our sisters. Being a Black woman is hard. And I have found so much joy in learning myself as a Black woman, being an unapologetic Black woman. I was listening to a podcast that was talking about family traumas, and it was talking about how sometimes other Black women are intimidated, especially in older generations, are intimidated by the moves that us as Black women are currently making. And it's not all of them, but there are some of them. We go out and we are boss wives and we're boss moms and we're boss girlfriends and fiancés and, all that stuff like that. We go out here, we catch these degrees, we catch these certifications, we catch these bags, and it intimidates some of the women that came before us. And so a lot of the times we minimize our successes because we've been taught that, the woman is to be seen and not heard, and the woman stands behind so-and-so. And it's like, no, like I'm a powerful Black woman in my own right, and I'm not apologizing for that anymore. Like the fact that, it may have taken me from 2009 to 2020 to finish my bachelor's, but I did it. And I'm about to graduate with my master's in August. And to think that I did it while going through some of the most transitional and pivotal times of my life. Like, I pat myself on the back. Like, ain't nobody gonna take that from me ever again. I'm never gonna allow anybody to speak down on my accomplishments, Like, I'm currently looking at doctoral programs, because you're gonna call me Dr. Kamara, baby. Hear me, okay? You're gonna call me that. But I'm already looking at, doctoral programs for after graduation, just because that's something I want, and I really am going after it now because I want it, not because I felt like in society, you got to have degrees to be somebody. That was my mindset at one point. And I think for a lot of Black people, that was a very common mindset. Degrees were what secured us and made us feel like we had did, what we were supposed to do. That's what we was taught. You go to college, you go to the military, you get a trade, you start a business, that's what we were taught. But now it's for me. Like, I don't care if I don't get no applause, I don't get any accolades or anything like that. I want these degrees for me. These are my successes. These are my goals and my dreams. You know what I mean? And so that is definitely number 7 for me. Number 8 has been to learn where I come from. 8 is one of my favorite numbers. It means new births and new beginnings. And in my 20s, I unfortunately lost some people that I did not get to establish relationships with that I really wish I had. Hence being my grandmother. I'm not sure if I mentioned on the channel, but in November, I lost my grandmother, my biological grandmother. And we had pretty much started building a relationship for about the last 2 years. And we were talking on the phone and spending time together. And she had gotten ill last summer. And so we knew that she had cancer. And she went through remission, through chemo and things like that. And it seemed as though things had gotten better. And when she went for her checkup, they found stage 4 cancer. And they told us that they found stage 4 cancer and that Monday she would start chemo, radiation. And by that Friday, I lost my grandmother. Me and my grandmother had actually had plans to spend the weekend to get together that Friday. Like we had planned it a month before. And as I was driving to drop off my children to go spend the weekend with her, I got the phone call that she was pretty much on life support. And that really took a lot out of me because here I am trying to grow this relationship, and it's not my fault that I didn't have a relationship with her since birth. That's another blog for being the daughter of someone who was not an active parent. And I plan to have a very candid conversation about that. But I really just felt robbed. And it felt like even at the funeral while everybody else was grieving, I was upset. I was angry because I didn't feel like I got the time that I should have gotten. And so that was something I had to process in therapy. And in addition to that, in this year of 2020, I abruptly lost my uncle, my dad's brother. And, everybody knows your aunt and uncle are like your second set of parents. Your cousins are your first best friends. They're pretty much your siblings. And I can say that I grew up with my cousins and we did everything together. Everything. Everything. We spent a lot of time together as kids. And when I was in college, I spent a lot of time with my aunt and uncle. They would pick me up from college. We would go down to Myrtle Beach. I would hang out with my cousins. We would go to bike week. I just spent a lot of time with them. And losing my uncle abruptly was really hard because it was totally unexpected. And going from somebody who's been there every day of your life to having to get used to them not being here anymore is really hard. All while supporting my father, watching my father mourn, watching my cousins mourn, being the oldest cousin and trying to care and support and love on my cousins, which we now call each other. We're siblings, period, because our daddy is their daddy now, and we're sharing our dad, and we already shared him because he was their uncle, but like we're siblings, period. Okay, we're no longer cousins, we're siblings. And it's been hard. Oh my God, it's been so hard. And that's another reason why I kind of fell off on the channel, was just that was a grief like none other. This was my first time experiencing unexpected grief, unexpected loss, which is a completely different level of grief that I've never really heard a lot of people talk about. And I plan to address that too. But just making sure that I intentionally build the connections that I want to build. I thank God that I don't hold any regrets because I did what I could do with my grandmother, and I did what I could. I spent more than enough time with my uncle. Like, I wish it was more. I swear I wish it was more. But I thank God that I had years upon years upon years with my uncle. Oh my God. I thank God for that. And so I have a lot of memories to reach back on and think about and just kind of hold me in those really rough spaces. So number 9, I would have to say, is to just go after everything you desire. Manifest the life that you want to live. Write the vision, make it plain, put it on a billboard, put it on your lock screen. I did a virtual vision board on my phone and made it my lock screen so that I could just look at it and see the different things that I wanted to achieve. But I also made a vision board here in my room that I look at. And I really believe in speaking things until I see it, putting them in front of me, putting them into the atmosphere, waiting for God and the universe to bring those things to fulfillment and into fruition. And in my, I didn't dream like I could have dreamed in my 20s. And I'm learning at the end of, I learned at my end of my 20s, like it's okay to dream. It's okay to think big. It's okay to put those goals out there. You know, like I don't have to keep things on the hush. I could just let it be. You know, I could just let it be. And so it has to be. And a phrase that I learned this year is ashe and amen. Ashe means so it is in African language, in Swahili, and amen. And I feel like that really just seals everything that I believe. And so number 10, I will leave you with is to learn God for yourself. In my 20s, I have had a relationship with God based off of what everybody else's relationship with God looked like. I condemned a lot of things. I spoke ill or ignorantly on a lot of things just because I didn't know. I had my own worldview at that time. And I have found that a lot of what I spoke over was really from lack of understanding, lack of education on my own part, and also just a desire of wanting to create something that looked like what everybody else said it was supposed to look like. And something that I was a little hesitant to share on my YouTube, I guess I'm going to speak now, which is that I have completely divorced religion. And I say that to say, like, organized religion, a lot of the personal opinions that people turn into doctrine, a lot of the stuff that people say God said that he did not, the stuff that's not in his word, I have completely cut that stuff off. I have stopped talking to other people about their relationship with God solely because I want to create my own relationship with him. I'm creating my own relationship with him. I'm creating my own understanding of him, who he is, what his word says, what he means, who he called me to be, who I am in his eyes, if I'm, if I'm pleasing in his sight. And at first it was a lot of like internal warfare, like about whether or not I was doing the right thing. And the crazy thing was, the more people I talked about, they tried to talk me out of this journey. But the more I talked to God about it, the more peace that I had. And so I've learned that some journeys are just not for everybody. And that's okay. And they may not understand it and they may not agree with it. But my relationship with God is my relationship with God. And it's nobody else's. And I want to be an example to my children to have pure and authentic relationships with God. And to know him for themselves and not based off of other people's story of who he is. Yes, testimony is perfectly fine and perfectly great, but I should not emulate my relationship with Christ exactly like somebody else's. I shouldn't have expectations of my relationship with Christ looking exactly like how God showed up for other people, because that's not realistic. If my walk with Christ was going to look exactly like somebody else's walk with Christ, he would have made us the same people. And my daddy used to always tell me, he'd say, look at your hand. He was like, you see all those lines in your hand? There's nobody else in the world with your fingerprint, with your blueprint, with a hand like yours, with the makeup. It might get close, but there's nobody in the world who has that same thing that you have. And so I have freed myself from feeling as though my life should look like everybody else's life. My relationship with God should look like everybody else's relationship with God. As long as I have a relationship with my Father, a conversation with my Father, and He's pleased with me, I'm pleased. And so I hope that you guys really enjoyed this video, that you appreciated the transparency. And if y'all want to talk about this more, definitely put it in the comments down below. Tell me some of the things you learned in your 20s, and let's have this conversation some more. I love you guys